We are the Ascension group of Sedona, and we work mainly with these four masters. Not that we work only with them, we work with everyone. And this is Saint Germain, El Morya, Kuthumi, and Serapis. And Serapis maintains a retreat at Cathedral Rock in Sedona. Kuthumi has a retreat at San Francisco Peaks. He is St. Francis. He was embodied as St. Francis of Assisi. And the Franciscan monks that settled the West, as it were, pretty much in the 1500s, were members of his order, the Franciscan monks. And of course, St. Germain, Shasta, and the whole connection. El Morya is the Choan of the first ray. And I'm not going to go into that right now, but he is the gatekeeper, in a sense, for all of the rest. In other words, we begin with the first ray, and he is also the gatekeeper, in a way, for Serapis. So part of the reason that people come to this part of the world, especially Sedona, is because of Serapis and because of the Ascension flame. When I first found out about Sedona, it was about 2 years before I moved there. And I kept hearing about Sedona, and I was working in Washington State. And the masters told me at one point, we want you to go to Sedona. And they said, you will be able to do in Sedona what you're trying to do up here. And I thought, well, that's a welcome aspect. I would love that. And I'd never really heard of Sedona. I had no idea. And I said, I was having a lot of trouble in the Northwest, trying to get something going there with my publishing and the work we were doing. I mean, we were getting a lot of work done. Don't mistake me for that. But immediately when we came to Sedona, everything just escalated. In fact, I hadn't published any books until I got here. I had one CD out. And now we have 400 or more. And I've published 5 or 6 books, not all my own. And I've published several CDs and DVDs of other people, which is part of our work too. I've been a librarian in many lives for the Great White Brotherhood. And because of that, I have been a keeper of the teachings. So I've been able to build on that momentum that I've had for many lifetimes and create some form of published material that other people can take advantage of if they're interested. And that's been one of my jobs in many lifetimes. So it seems to continue. That's one of the things that seems to be continuing. And the reason I call myself Li Po is that they told me this was my Ascension name. And I was Li Po, the Chinese poet in, about 1,000 years ago or so in China. And that was one of my several embodiments working with Zen and Buddhism and the ideas that accompany that particular style of writing. Now, I didn't know this. Right off the bat, I really got intrigued with studying Zen. And I had pretty much read everything you could find on Zen and all of the Cleary translations, which are the best, and had discovered the Zen was in me. It was there. I couldn't deny it. So I wrote Zen. None of this is published. At some point, we'll publish the old books. If I live long enough, maybe someone else will after I'm gone. But I've got several volumes of unpublished works that I would like to do. We just don't have time. There just isn't time. So we are now down to doing things more quickly. We do them with video. Because my third book, which I did bring copies of, took me 11 years to write. And that was not only because it took 11 years to write it, but it was because I had to experience certain things that needed to be in the book. In fact, one of the remarkable things that I find from my viewpoint was that as I thought the book was finished, I got a book anonymously in the mail. And the book was sent by I don't know who. It was a published book, though. I had one more book sent to me by Serapis that was unpublished. I don't know where it came from. It was in my post box, my P.O. box, in a plain brown wrapper, without a canceled stamp, had no publisher on it, had no author, in a hardback book, no ISBN number, no identifying marks of any sort, but it's the best book I've found on Ascension. So I assumed that it was a gift from Serapis. But this next book that came to me anonymously was about the arc-home geometry. And I was discovering at that point, I thought I had finished the third book, but actually they wanted some information about the vortex in Sedona from the Ascended Master viewpoint, because most of what's written is not from the Ascended Master viewpoint. It's more or less from a psychic approach or whatever. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but the center of Sedona is really Cathedral Rock. Serapis had instructed me to go to Egypt and physically bring back the Ascension flame and place it physically in the cathedral. Now that meant, to me at the time, it didn't mean much. I mean, I knew what he was talking about, and I remembered being with him when we went to Egypt in the first place, 200,000 years ago at the sinking of Atlantis. But I didn't know what was going to happen till I got there. So I went to Egypt and I discovered that the Ascension flame was anchored in the obelisk. Anyway, when I got there, I looked up and lo and behold, oh, there's the Ascension flame. So Serapis was originally the keeper of that flame even back on Atlantis. And that was over 200,000 years ago. So he came back as Akhenaten's father, Amenhotep III, and among other notable embodiments. But he worked through this Ascension flame in Egypt for quite a long time before he made his ascension as Leonidas, the Greek general who held off the Persians. So Serapis was working with Jesus, and among others, and he was working specifically with El Morya and Kuthumi. And to just cut to the chase, he was bringing them up to speed so that they could leave the third dimension at the end of the 1800s and complete their work, which was to initiate what we call theosophy through Madame Blavatsky. And that was their real completion of their work in the physical plane. So they started theosophy through Madame Blavatsky in, about 1875. And the actual Secret Doctrine, which was her second volume, was probably the clearest and most complete exposition of the teachings to ever happen. And still to this day it is. Even though, when I say clearest, if any of you have tried to read that particular document, I've been reading it since 76. And I'm still reading it, and I'm still wondering what some of it's about. In spite of all the elucidation that we get from various inspirations from the masters and whomever,